It's Labor Day Monday, September 1st, and we have some very nice weather that we're expecting today. And that's starting with no severe weather is expected anywhere in the US today. The only place where it could potentially be possible would be in a very small sector, that being in southern Kansas and northern Oklahoma. And that would be in the mid afternoon hours that we could see anything. But for the rest of the country, it's actually looking like it's going to be pretty clear. Likely some scattered thunderstorms down here in Florida, and then pretty much anywhere in the light shaded green. Up here in the north, there might be a line of thunderstorms in the late day, but everything else just looks like it would be just weak and showery. And luckily with those showers, it doesn't even look like we're going to get loads of rain. Of course, we have a couple of marginal risk of flash flooding, but that's going to be very, very conditional risk. It's not likely that we're actually going to see some flash flooding because in all of these areas, there's just that conditional threat of 1 to 2 inches of rain. But this gives us a better look on where our biggest areas of showery storms are expected to be. One being out here in the central to southern plains, and another one kind of spanning quite a bit of the southwest and then southern Texas as well. Then, of course, the eastern sector of Florida, then a little blotch out here in central Tennessee and northern Alabama. But the biggest thing today is that we're going to be seeing some very, very nice temperatures, especially for the summer, even in the areas the past couple of days, which have been the hottest, seeing those mid to low hundreds, that being closer to mid 90s. Like Texas and Florida are going to be seeing some very nice temperatures, not even expected to reach over the low 90s. Feels like range. Then the rest of the country is going to be sitting in that mid 70s to mid 80s. Feels like range with a exclusion, but it's a good exclusion if you're out here in the central plains. That being the southern sector of Iowa and the northern sector of Missouri, and then even the far eastern sector of Nebraska, you could potentially be seeing some low 60s feels like temperatures. So that'll be great for Labor Day. The only place where it might be a little bit toastier than usual will be out here in the Pacific. And immediately, we're not expecting to see any tropical weather for the next week in the US, and we're not really even expecting it currently, even with this disturbance, pretty much at all for the next 2 weeks at least. But this disturbance has once again seen a uptick in the probability of it forming. Yesterday was a 30% chance, now it is a 40%, and this is actually seen a pretty good chance of developing into a tropical storm, and the current model guidance shows it kind of just moving out into the Atlantic and not affecting the US mainland at all. But is it really worth predicting where this is going to go? Not really, because it's so far out, but it is important to note that there is a decent chance of seeing this form into a tropical storm, and this is definitely something that we're going to want to watch as it traverses the main development region out here in the Atlantic. And here's what the radar is going to look like in our main sector for seeing some thunderstorms out here in the southern plains. And immediately we can see what I was talking about with that main area of concern being up here in this small little area in southern Kansas and then into northern Oklahoma. That's really the only place where we could potentially see some severe weather today, and that threat is going to be pretty small as it is. Now, these cluster of cells would likely develop in the early to mid afternoon, potentially bringing that threat for some gusty winds, even possibly being in that severe range of 60 miles an hour. The hail threat with these would be low, and the tornado threat would be almost zero, though. So that's good news. And we could just see a lot of widespread showers, specifically out here in far southern Texas, then a little bout out here in eastern Texas. Now, this main cluster of cells up here in southern Kansas and northern Oklahoma is going to be brought by a descending area of spinach or low pressure along our big jet stream flow. And then that jet stream flow will also act as kind of the initiator for this little band of storms out here in far eastern Texas, as well as a trough. And then moving a little bit north, we can see that we're going to have quite a bit of rain in the early hours of the day, likely dissipating by the early afternoon, starting in this area, stretching all the way from Nebraska down to Oklahoma. This is why we have a marginal risk of seeing some potential flash flooding out here, but that's why it's only marginal risk, because this is expected to dissipate pretty quickly, and this will also be brought by that big area of jet stream flow, and then also that low pressure system kind of moving southward. And there's going to be 3 main areas to watch other than the areas I just mentioned. One is going to be up here in the far northern US, specifically Minnesota and North Dakota, we could see a line of thunderstorms push through, likely in the very late hours of the day, probably not even kind of affecting this area until post sunset. And this would just be for some gusty winds, nothing severe though. And this would also be brought by bit of a trough pushing in. And it looks like also a front kind of draped down by a low pressure system up here in Canada as well. Another area to watch is going to be out here in the southwest, kind of what we've been used to seeing the past couple of weeks, where we just have a high pressure system spinning out here and there's enough moisture for some storms to be initiated. And then the last place is going to be the southeast. Potentially in eastern Florida, we could see some scattered showers pretty much all the way through the day. And then also out here in this little blotch in central Tennessee, stretching also down into Alabama, there will also be a bit of trough and frontal activity out here as well, possibly bring some showers in the late afternoon, which is a bit unfortunate out here because that is when a lot of those Labor Day celebrations will be going on. But it looks like these storms will be pretty scattered, unorganized, and slightly weak. So even if you were potentially planning a Labor Day celebration, you could probably still have it. Just stay weather aware. And then here are 500 millibar winds really bringing a lot of our weather today, stretching all the way down from the US-Canada border and then down into the southeast. That is why we have this kind of belt of area kind of focused on this region. And then we have a couple of areas of increased flow. The first one is going to be out here in the central to southern plains. That is why that is the only area that I really see seeing some severe weather today potentially. And then we have a couple other areas of flow, one being out here in eastern Texas. And then we just see a lot of westerly flow all the way through our risk areas, potentially up here in central Tennessee and then Alabama. Then, of course, Florida. Then also back here in southwest, we also have that high pressure system just spinning, bringing quite a bit of flow to the region. And there's just moist enough air to potentially see some organized storms out there as well. And this is the storm environment from that little sector in southern Kansas and then northern Oklahoma, kind of showing why we could potentially have severe weather out there, although it's not looking likely. And one of the main things kind of hindering that is the pretty low instability. We don't even have 1,000 Cape, which is what we'd like to see for thunderstorms to really even be possible, but that's not going to be super present. The only thing which is making this possible is going to be the pretty good amount of organizational shear nearing 40 knots. Then we also have a moist enough environment at a 63 dew point, and then our lapse rates aren't that poor. And then there's also some dry air aloft as well. So could there potentially be severe weather out here? It looks like the risk for that is very low, but this would be the sector where we're expecting to see some of these stronger thunderstorms in the country today.